But before we do all that, I'm gonna ask you guys to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It really goes a long way and it helps with the algorithm. And with that, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? So, growing up, we had these cartoons, right? Or at least I thought they were just cartoons. Well, anime is kind of cartoon, but anyway. We had Voltron, we had Saber Rider, and we had Gem, right? I think Gem was um was an American Japanese collaboration. It was a joint venture. It was it was like a shoujo, like a girly cartoon, right? You had Gem, the star singer, and with her band, and she had these ops called the Misfits. So you had that. You have Voltron, which everybody knows. Form feet and legs, form arms and torso, and I'll form the head. If you don't get that reference, look it up. You had to be there. And you had Saber Rider, which was also called Bismarck in Japan, which is also legendary. I never really got to finish the cartoon. I regret it. Um, but yeah, so we kind of just grew up with these cartoons, right? And our local television station was too cheap to get anything current because these cartoons are from the 1980s. So they were like several years too old, expired, like they're super outdated. But our government's TV station was too cheap to get us anything more current. So it is what it is. That's what we grew up with. Um, and then before I started primary school, I got exposed to Power Rangers. Right, I was in nursery school, and it was Power Rangers Turbo. I remember, and it was so ass. But I was so young, I didn't know the difference between quality and just garbanzo. So I went back home and I asked my brother, like, I saw this thing at school. They had this tape. Yes. So ball knowers, anyone with ball knowledge, anyone who was there at the time, knows what a VCR and a VHS tape is. All you Gen Zers and all you youngins will never know what that is. I just realized, like, that tape deck and the is that a CD player that my avatar is listening to? I don't know what the hell that thing is, and it's connected to the figure. I don't know, bro. AI is terrible. Uh, anyway, so we watched Power Rangers Turbo. I went back to my brother. I was like, "Yo, I watched this really cool thing. Um, it's a bunch of guys, one girl or two girls, and they all have these like uh, colored suits, and they fight monsters, and it's really cool and whatever." He's like, "Oh, that's Power Rangers. Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then some time later, we rented Power Rangers in Space from the local video club. That's before we had Netflix. We had places where you could rent tapes, cassettes, right? And I loved it. It was a Psycho Rangers arc. If you know, you know. Like, people who are there will understand just the menace, the pure evil, the black Air Force energy that the Psycho Rangers brought.
He needs some milk!
No one could ever replicate that. There's literally a trope called the Psycho Rangers, which is basically a palette swapped evil version of the protagonist cast. Anyway, fast forward to a year later, I watched Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which doesn't make sense because, like, it was the first series, but whatever. That's like the first Power Rangers series I ever watched from start to end, and I loved it. Really got into the characters. We really got, and then there was like Tommy Oliver, the GOAT, the legend. Like, to this day, he's that guy. He's that dude. And I carried on watching Power Rangers for the next few years. I watched Time Force. I watched all these things, and it really got me into appreciating shonen, because make no mistake about it, Power Rangers is anime. It's not anime, but it is sort of, because like it's Japanese, right? It comes from Super Sentai, and sometimes you can actually see the Japanese script, and some of the stuff they were too lazy to translate to English. Then you got the poses, the over the top poses, the over the top choreography, especially when Time Force came around. They were copying the Matrix. They had a lot of bullet time, you had a lot of slow mo, and this is just stuff you don't get in kids shows from America, from the West, from anywhere else. Um, then you had the power of friendship. You had overcoming the odds. You had color coded people, and it just had a very different vibe. You know that when I found out about Super Sentai and I found out that it was Japanese, it made so much sense. It made all the sense in the world. So after that, I got into Pokemon and Digimon. I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the way everything looked. I loved the big expressive eyes. I loved the epic battles, the the named attacks. Your Nova Flame from Greymon. Um, what was War Greymon's move, man? Something Terra Nova. Man, it was. And then you had Metal Greymon with his Metal Wolf Breath. And then you had season three with Guilmon and Takato, Digimon Tamers. Oh my gosh, that shit was dope. And you had the first movie. Oh, now I'm getting nostalgic because like the first movie had that soundtrack with changing to power. Let's kick it up with the kids in America. Oh man, like oh shit, I love that stuff. I ate it up so. I remember my brother hated it, and I drove him up the wall because I recorded it from because my dad actually ponied up and he paid for the TV subscription, and I recorded it and I kept on watching it again and again and again and again. And with said subscription, I finally got to watch Dragon Ball Z. So a year prior to that, one of my friends who came from a well-to-do family sowed the seeds of Dragon Ball in my head. He kept on talking about Dragon Ball. He was glazing, like he wouldn't stop glazing it. Like I wish he just like wiped it off afterwards after glazing, cause like damn, like he wouldn't stop talking about Yamcha, bruh. Like Yamcha, Yamcha. Like he's like, oh my gosh, Yamcha's the strongest guy. He's he's the goat. He's this. He's that. I'm like, okay. So the irony, because like Yamcha, you know. Fast forward to when I got the subscription, I found out that Dragon Ball Z was airing on television, and we got the subscription just in time, like at the beginning of Z, right? It was just like as Raditz was flying to Earth, and Dragon Ball Z changed everything. It was a game. It was a game changer. It changed my life. It changed everything. Because up until that, okay, I'd watched Rurouni Kenshin with my brother. Rurouni Kenshin, Samurai X. Um, and I feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about that because of the author. He was caught with CP. He's a PDF file, at least. Yeah, according to reports and stuff. I mean, you shouldn't be caught with CP. That's like the worst thing you could ever be caught with. So we started off with that, and then Dragon Ball Z. And Dragon Ball Z was just, it had the same spirit that Power Rangers had, you know, the power of friendship. You had the template. You had Goku, your unassuming, you know, thick, unassuming, numbskull, well-meaning, super strong, determined protagonist who wears either orange or red. You know, that was the meta back then. Then you had Vegeta, you know, the rival who starts off more powerful, faster, slicker, more aura, smarter, and usually comes from nobility. Like Sasuke comes from uh, the Uchihas, and they're sort of treated as, you know, nobility up until they got genocided, right? And everyone glazed the Uchihas as well. He's better looking, he's this, he's that, he's smart, he's fast, he's blah 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 blah. Same thing. So Dragon Ball Z like introduced me to that style of storytelling. Then it also had the same art style, you know, the crazy hair, the over the top facial expressions, the eyes. And then it got even crazier when Goku turned into a Super Saiyan, and everything up until that, you know, watching Gohan grow into a badass because he couldn't even dodge. Team 4-Star Dragon Ball Z, a British reference for the OGs. If you know, you know. For the ball knowers, people with ball knowledge. He couldn't dodge, he couldn't do anything, and then he went from that to like giving Frieza, I think, a beating in three out of his four forms because like he kept on crashing out over something, like when Krillin got stabbed, when he thought Goku was dead, and this and that, and just watching that was inspirational as a kid. It's like obviously it's not real, but it just makes you feel like you could just do anything. And plus, at the time, my brother had gotten me into Kyokushin karate, so just watching people dressed in gi doing crazy shit, just it just it just worked. It just worked, you know. It just worked. It just worked. Um, and then after that, I got into gaming. You know, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, all that stuff. So there was a little bit less emphasis on Dragon Ball Z, and we also kind of lost access to that channel. Something weird happened, so the last thing that I watched on TV was the Cell Saga, and it was like the episode just before Goku and Cell squared off. So I missed out on that for many years, and I was really pissed off. Um, then I went back into drawing Pokemon, drawing Digimon, and all that stuff. Loved it. And that's when I watched Digimon 4 with a Goonimon, where they turn into the actual Digimon as opposed to like having a pet that you use to beat other people's pets, whatever. Um, then around that time, I think in the rest of the world, um, Naruto took off, as did Bleach, and One Piece was already a thing. But you need to understand that where I'm from, we didn't have access to these channels. We didn't have access to any of this stuff. We had the Sci-Fi channel, which is actually quite interesting because like the Sci-Fi channel was exactly what it says on the tin, right? It was a Sci-Fi channel. But then on the weekends, they used to air anime, right? It was always anime from the 90s. Usually obscure stuff like Dirty Flash Pair, Adventure Duo, what's the other one? Dirty Flash Pair, Adventure Duo, and Excel Saga, right? They also had Spriggan, which is not obscure, but I never watched it. It was rated 18. And they had Ghost in the Shell, which is also rated 18. But the thing about these other anime that I mentioned is that they were also like inappropriate for a kid my age at the time. My brother was old enough to watch it, so Excel Saga was okay, but Adventure Duo was just like a disaster. It was like etchy. It was borderline. Yeah, like we that's an L we will never live down. Like terrible. I hated it. I was too young to even like find it funny or appreciate it. Um, so that's what we had. We didn't have access to Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, so I missed that boat. And then when I moved to high school, right, I kind of distanced myself from anime because everybody else sort of like thought it was pathetic, weak, nerdy, lame, um, and I just didn't want to be associated with that. I was already enough of a nerd. I don't want to like add more nerd points, more loser points, which is a shame because like I just conformed to what everyone else is doing instead of just exploring my own thing. And then halfway through, one of my friends burnt a CD with Soul Eater and Soul Eater and what was it? There was a Bleach movie and a Naruto movie on the other disc, and I watched them. They were cool, but I was kind of lukewarm on them. I found Soul Eater to be funny, but it didn't really stick with me. And then I moved to uni when I went to university, and um, I still had that anti-anime sentiment. I was like, man. But then my friends were all weebs. They kept on talking about Naruto Shippuden because it was at its fever pitch and it was close to ending. And they were talking about Attack on Titan because at the time it was still new and hot. And they also talked about Sword Art Online and how much they hated it. So I was just stuck in the middle there, and these guys are just like talking about things I didn't know anything about. And then I was a little bit curious, but I resisted the curiosity. And then by the end of uni, because I was about to go home and the internet back home wasn't that good, so I asked my friends if they could share some stuff with me. And I was like to one of my other friends, "You mind sharing some of that anime to me?" And I said it so weirdly, and I was ashamed of myself because I just thought it was, weird geek shit, even though I was a gamer at the time. And then he gave me Attack on Titan, um, Cowboy Bebop, uh, Full Metal Alchemist, I think, and some other stuff. And I and when I tell you that I wasn't ready for Attack on Titan, I mean it. I watched the first episode. I binged 6 episodes, I think, in one night, and I finished the whole season in about 3 4 days. It changed. It changed my life. It was a game changer. I couldn't believe the shit that was going on. Aaron getting his mom eaten. Aaron getting eaten. Aaron coming back as a Titan. Aaron putting belt to ass on these Titans. Aaron getting belt to ass by Annie. Aaron putting belt to ass on Annie. Levi losing a squad. Levi putting belt to ass on people in retaliation for losing a squad. The expressiveness of these characters, like just the level of despair, like the way they drew them, the eyes, the shade, the shadowing, the shading, and like the little shadow underneath on their brows when they and the sense of helplessness, and that primed me to watching anime. I didn't watch Cowboy Bebop, and then what was the other thing I watched? I didn't really have that much anime in the beginning, but it opened me up, right? And then I watched Full Metal Alchemist, and that just blew my mind. I wasn't ready for that because I thought Attack on Titan was the end all be all, but Full Metal Alchemist for me is like on the same level, right? And when I went back to uni, I was like a crack addict looking for the next thing, looking for my next fix, you know? So I got my hands on Hajime no Ippo, I got my hands on Kuroko no Basuke, and then Hunter x Hunter, and a bunch of other stuff, and I just ate them up. Hajime no Ippo literally, like, made me a boxing fan. I took boxing classes the next year. I'd done MMA classes the previous year, but then the coach was really toxic. And then I found out that there was a different coach for boxing, so I signed up the first chance I got. And then fast forward to 2026, I actually do MMA as a hobby. So, yeah, but it was inconsistent. Like it was on and off. So, I did boxing for 1 year, and then I stopped. Then I did MMA for 1 year. After that, then I stopped, and I got injured. And I started doing grappling, and now I do MMA. And that's all because of Hajime no Ippo. I mean, yeah, sure, I did karate classes with my brother back when I was a kid. I did Kyokushin. My brother put me on. He put like he's the goat, right? But I would have never jumped into like full contact sports, like sports like fight sports type martial arts stuff in the same way if Hajime no Ippo did not give me that extra push, because like there's nothing like when Ippo discovers a Dempsey roll, and like the music stops and all you hear is like the friction he's making with the air and like that infinity sign, and he's just putting belt ass on Sendo, or is it the Sendo, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. And I was like, man, that looks horrible, that looks so painful, I want to do it. That's how it happened with me. So, and then you had Kuroko no Basuke, which made me like basketball, right? I don't watch basketball, but I respect it. Like, there's so much aura. Like, oh man, like the ankle breaks. Like, what's his name? Kise? Stealing people's techniques, and oh man, so goated. And then you had Full Metal Alchemist with Maya Hughes and like, Nina. Oh man, it's heartbreaking. I don't want to get into it right now. Um, And then I just built on that, right? So I started watching the anime of the season. And then I got into My Hero Academia. Then I watched Cells at Work because I also loved the comedic part of anime. I tried watching Devil's a Part Timer and so many different shows, dude. Like I went from baby weeb to like weeb in chief in no time because I started like going back in time watching your Yu Yu Hakushos, for example, which became, I think, my favorite battle shonen to this day. And I watched Akame ga Kill, all these different shows, and I kept on just like asking for content from my friends whenever I met them. And one of my friends gave me Naruto, but I didn't watch it immediately because I didn't want to. Because I just had this thing against the big three. I just didn't want to watch them. I wanted to watch everything else apart from from the big three. I watched Death Note. I watched Code Geass. I watched the Fate series, Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works. I watched all that stuff, but never Naruto, or Bleach or One Piece until later on. I jumped into One Piece towards the end of uni, but I could never get past the Enel arc because I didn't have enough episodes, and I just grew tired of it. Because I mean, 1,000. I mean, how am I supposed to do that, man? Like, tell me, 1,000 episodes. Like, come on, dog. Like, that's ridiculous. So, and then what happens next is I finish uni, and my friends and I are like hooked to Attack on Titan. Everyone is into it. I'm into it. The normies who didn't even watch anime are into it because it's around season three, season four, season three part two, and it's about to reach its climax, right? So I took a gap year after uni because that's when the pandemic happened and all that stuff, and it's really depressing. And I started like diving deep into my collection because we all had these hard drives, and I had like a 2 terabyte hard drive with movies, series, and I think 150 different anime series. And I watched the majority of them. I watched Vinland Saga. I watched JoJo finally because I kept on seeing all these JoJo references and memes and stuff, Sawardo and whatever. And when I got round to it, that was another milestone. It shaped my taste. It shaped my sense of humor. It shaped how I see things. You know, like I love Dio, I love Jotaro, I love the poses, I love everything, and I love seeing references to JoJo and other things like in Persona, Guilty Gear, Gintama, um, everything. You know, there's JoJo everywhere. Bayonetta has JoJo references, for example, and it just made me happy to see a work of art from the 80s being given the love that it does. And I just I need to salute Araki for JoJo. It's brilliant, and I need to catch up with the latest season. And then I also got into the big three, so I finished Naruto. I watched a little part of Bleach, but I didn't like the fact that Ichigo manages to learn Bankai in 3 days and beat Byakuya, who's like 100 years old. I hated that. And yeah, following that, there's like the shift, from the old school to like you had My Hero Academia as the bridging point, which had also been eating up at the time, and then you had Demon Slayer, which I fell in love with. Then you had Jujutsu Kaisen, which I can't get enough of. There's so much cool shit going on in there. You got Gojo with his like aura farming. You got just hands being thrown every single week, and Chainsaw Man, of course, got Shakuta, all these different shows, and that's how I ended up where I am. That's how I ended up who I am. I like everything about well, not everything. There's a lot of stuff I don't like. I don't like ecchi stuff unless it's funny. I don't like the hentai stuff. I don't like lolicon. I don't like short. I don't like any of that stuff. Okay, don't lump me in. Don't lump me in with those guys. Like I'm not one of those guys. I'm not part of that. But I like everything else about anime. I love the humor, the action, the storytelling. Of course, the storytelling, of course, a lot of the times is cliche and predictable, especially in like your battle shonens. But still, I like the ride. I like the emotional roller coaster, the art style, like I said, the idiosyncrasies of Japanese society being portrayed in that as well, which is actually one of the reasons why I I took a trip there last year. I had to I had to see where all this stuff is coming from, and it was sensational. It was life changing. So yeah, I think that about sums it up. That's basically how I became an anime fan. Like it's just a lot of different things. It's Power Rangers, it's Digimon, it's Pokemon, it's Dragon Ball Z, martial arts, and all that stuff. And yeah, I I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. It's become a part of me, and I'm a proud weeb, dirty ass, filthy ass, degenerate weeb, and I'm loving every moment of it. Uh, for all those who watched up until this point, just want to say thank you, and also to remind you to, if you haven't done so already, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends, share with people who you know will like it, share with people who you know will hate it, because you have to share that misery, you know? Like, we share joy, we our wins, but we need to share our lowlights and also shit our ups with. So, please, help me fight the algorithm and share the shit in this video.